My name is Mabel Richardson, and I'm 73 years old. I've lived a long life, weathered many storms, and thought I'd seen every kind of heartbreak a person could endure. But nothing, absolutely nothing, prepared me for what I discovered in my sister's diary 3 months ago. A secret so devastating, so cruel, that it shattered everything I thought I knew about my family, my father's death, and the past 20 years of my life. They say the truth will set you free. Well, let me tell you something. Sometimes the truth locks you in a prison of your own memories, forcing you to relive every moment, every conversation, every tear you cried, knowing it was all built on lies. My father didn't die the way my sister told me he did. In fact, he didn't die when she said he did at all. And the worst part? She knew. She knew everything, and she let me grieve a lie for 2 decades. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me start from the beginning because this story, my story, deserves to be told properly. And before I go any further, if you're someone who values family, who believes in honesty, or who's ever wondered if your own relatives might be hiding something from you, please subscribe to Family Tales. These are real stories from real people, and mine might just help you understand your own family better. It was a Tuesday morning in late July when my world came crashing down. The kind of summer day that starts out beautiful, birds singing, sun filtering through the lace curtains of my bedroom window, the smell of coffee brewing downstairs where my husband Howard was already up reading his newspaper. I had no idea that by noon everything would change. My sister Lillian had called the day before, asking if I could come by her house to help her sort through some boxes in her attic. She was 76, 3 years older than me, and her arthritis had been acting up something terrible. Just some old junk that needs organizing, she'd said in that casual way of hers. Nothing important, but you know how I hate to throw things away without a second opinion. Lillian lived about 20 minutes from me, in the same neighborhood where we'd grown up. She'd bought our childhood home from our mother's estate after Mama passed in 1998, and she'd lived there ever since, surrounded by memories. I visited her at least twice a week. We'd always been close, or so I thought. She was my only sibling, my big sister, the person who'd braided my hair when I was little, who'd taught me how to apply lipstick, who'd held my hand at our mother's funeral. We'd been through everything together. Or at least that's what I believed. I arrived at Lillian's house around 10 that morning. The old Victorian looked just as it always had. White paint peeling slightly on the porch railings, Mama's rose bushes still blooming along the front walk, the porch swing where Daddy used to sit on summer evenings. Every time I visited, I felt him there, felt the weight of his absence like a physical thing. Daddy had died in March of 2005. Or that's what Lillian told me. I was living in Arizona at the time with Howard. He'd gotten a job transfer, and we'd moved out there in 2003 with our 2 grown children and their families following eventually. It was supposed to be a fresh start, a chance to enjoy the warm weather in our retirement years. But I'd worried about leaving Lillian and Daddy behind. Mama had already been gone for years and Daddy was getting older. He was 78 in 2003, still sharp as a tack but slowing down physically. "Don't you worry about us," Lillian had said when I'd expressed my concerns about moving. "I'm right here with Daddy. I'll take good care of him. You go live your life, Mabel. You've earned it." And I'd believed her. I trusted her completely. 20 months after we moved to Arizona, Lillian called me at 6 in the morning. I can still hear her voice, thick with tears, breaking as she said the words, "Mabel, I have terrible news. It's Daddy. He had a heart attack yesterday evening. By the time the ambulance got here, he was already gone. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." I remember the phone slipping from my hand. I remember Howard catching me as my knees buckled. I remember the sound that came out of me. Not quite a scream, not quite a sob, but something raw and animal and broken. We flew back immediately, but by the time we arrived, Daddy had already been cremated. "It's what he wanted," Lillian explained, her eyes red and swollen. "He told me years ago that he didn't want a fuss, didn't want people staring at his body. He wanted to be cremated immediately and have a small memorial service. I had to honor his wishes, Mabel. I hope you understand." I did understand. Or I thought I did. And I was grateful that Lillian had been there with him at the end, grateful that he hadn't died alone. The memorial service was small, just as Lillian said he'd wanted. Some of Daddy's old friends from the Rotary Club, a few neighbors, some distant cousins. We spread his ashes in the garden behind the house, under the old oak tree where he'd built us a tire swing when we were children. I cried until I thought I might turn inside out. Howard held me. Lillian held my other hand. We grieved together. And then I went back to Arizona, carrying my grief like a stone in my chest, visiting every few months, calling Lillian weekly, sharing memories of Daddy, crying together on his birthday and on the anniversary of his death. For 20 years I mourned him. For 20 years, I lived with the guilt of not being there at the end. For 20 years, I believed my sister. On that Tuesday morning in July, I let myself in through Lillian's front door with the spare key she'd given me years ago. "Lily," I called out, using the childhood nickname that only I was allowed to use. "I'm here. Up in the attic." Her voice floated down the stairs. "The door's open." I climbed the narrow stairs to the second floor, then pulled down the attic ladder. The smell hit me immediately, that distinctive scent of old houses, of cardboard and dust and time. The attic was cramped, with a sloped ceiling and one small window letting in a shaft of dusty sunlight. Boxes were stacked everywhere, labeled in Mama's neat handwriting. Christmas decorations, winter clothes, baby items, photos. Lillian was sitting on an old trunk, wiping her forehead with a handkerchief. She looked tired, older than her years, with deep lines around her eyes and mouth. "Thank goodness you're here," she said. I started going through some of these boxes, and honestly, Mabel, I don't know what to keep and what to toss. There's just so much. We worked in comfortable silence for a while, the way sisters do. Opening boxes, exclaiming over old photographs, laughing at childhood drawings we'd made, getting misty-eyed over Mama's wedding dress, carefully preserved in tissue paper. It was pleasant, nostalgic, the kind of afternoon I'd spent with Lillian 100 times before. "I need to use the bathroom," Lillian announced after about an hour. "These old bones don't work like they used to. Keep sorting through that box of papers. Most of it's probably junk that can be thrown out." She disappeared down the ladder, and I turned my attention to the box she'd indicated. It was full of old documents, tax returns from the 1980s, expired insurance policies, yellowed newspaper clippings. I was about to set it aside for the trash when I noticed a small leather book tucked in the corner, underneath a stack of Mama's recipe cards. A diary. Now, I want to be clear about something. I'm not the kind of person who reads other people's private journals. I was raised better than that. But the diary was old, the leather cracked and faded, and I thought maybe it was Mama's, or even one of mine or Lillian's from our teenage years. We'd both kept diaries as girls. I opened it to the first page, expecting to see childish handwriting and entries about school dances and first crushes. Instead, I saw Lillian's adult handwriting, and a date, January 2nd, 2005. My heart started beating faster. 2005. The year Daddy died. Or the year Lillian said he died. I knew I should close it. I knew I should put it back. But something, intuition, fate, God's intervention, I don't know, made me keep reading. "New year has come and gone," the entry began. "Another year of keeping this secret. Another year of lying to Mabel. Sometimes I wonder if I'm doing the right thing. But then I remember what Daddy did, what he chose, and I know I can't tell her. She'd want to see him. She'd want to talk to him. And after what he did to us, to Mama, he doesn't deserve her forgiveness. He doesn't deserve her love. He made his choice when he walked out that door with that woman. And I made mine when I decided to protect Mabel from the truth." I read the words 3 times, trying to make sense of them. What woman? What choice? And most importantly, why was Lillian writing about Daddy in present tense, as if he were still alive? My hands were shaking as I flipped forward through the pages. More entries scattered across months and years. March 15, 2005. I told Mabel today that Daddy died. The lie came out so smoothly, like I'd practiced it 1,000 times. Maybe I had in my head. She was devastated, of course. Part of me wanted to tell her the truth, that he's alive and well and living in Florida with his mistress, but I couldn't. She's already dealing with the move to Arizona. She doesn't need to know that our father is a cheating coward who abandoned his dying wife for a woman 20 years younger. The attic seemed to tilt around me. I gripped the edge of the trunk, diary clutched in my other hand, trying to breathe. This couldn't be real. This had to be some kind of fiction, some story Lillian had been writing. But I knew my sister's handwriting. I knew her voice. And as I kept reading, I knew with horrible, absolute certainty that every word was true. July 4, 2008. Ran into Phyllis Morrison at the grocery store today. She asked how I was doing and said she was sorry about Daddy. I almost laughed. Sorry about what? That he's probably on a beach somewhere with his whore, not giving a damn about the daughters he left behind? I smiled and thanked her and moved on. The lie has become so easy now. Sometimes I almost believe it myself. December 25, 2010. Mabel called today, crying about how much she missed Daddy on Christmas. 5 years of tears for a man who doesn't deserve them. I wanted to scream at her to stop, to tell her he's not worth her grief. But I just held the phone and made sympathetic noises. What kind of sister am I? March 18, 2015. 10 years since I told Mabel that Daddy died. 10 years of maintaining this lie. I got a card from him today. He sends one every year on the anniversary of when he left. Always the same message. I hope you understand. I hope you can forgive me someday. I threw it in the trash just like I do every year. Mabel can never know. It would destroy her. She loved him so much, trusted him so completely. Let her keep her memories of him as a good father. It's kinder this way. September 3, 2018. Mabel visited this week and we spread flowers at Daddy's grave under the oak tree. She cried. I cried too, but not for the same reasons. I cried because I've become a liar just like him. I cried because every day that passes makes it harder to tell the truth. How do you tell someone you've lied to for 13 years? How do you explain that the grief they've been carrying is for a man who's been alive this whole time? The attic had gone silent except for the sound of my ragged breathing. Below I could hear Lillian moving around, humming softly to herself, probably making us some tea. My sister. My Lily. The person I trusted more than anyone in the world. She'd lied to me. For 20 years she'd lied to me. Daddy wasn't dead. He'd left us. Left Mama when she was dying of cancer. Left us for another woman. And Lillian had known all along. She'd watched me grieve, watched me cry, watched me visit his fake grave. And she'd never said a word. Before I continue with what happened next, I need you to understand something. I need you to truly grasp what I felt in that moment. Subscribe to Family Tales if you haven't already, because stories like these, stories about family betrayal, about secrets that reshape everything you thought you knew, these need to be told. They need to be heard. Because somewhere out there, someone else might be living a lie told by someone they love, and they deserve to know they're not alone. I sat in that attic for what felt like hours but was probably only minutes. Diary open in my lap, tears streaming down my face. My mind was racing, trying to process everything, trying to reconcile the sister I knew with the woman who'd written these words. Part of me wanted to run down those stairs and confront her immediately, to scream in rage and demand answers. But another part of me, the part that had learned patience over 73 years of life, needed to read more first. I needed to understand the full scope of this betrayal before I faced her. So I kept reading. November 12, 2019. Got a call from a woman named Sandra today. She found my number in Daddy's address book. She said Daddy had a stroke and was in the hospital in Sarasota. She thought I should know. She sounded nervous, like she wasn't sure if she should be calling. I thanked her and hung up. Later, I sat in the dark and thought about driving down there. I thought about seeing him again after all these years. But then I remembered Mama's last days, how she cried for him, how she asked where he was. I remember telling her he'd just stepped out, would be back soon, when we both knew he was gone for good. No, I decided. He made his choice. He can die alone for all I care. My father had a stroke. He'd been in the hospital, possibly dying, and Lillian hadn't told me. Hadn't even considered telling me. December 20th, 2019. Sandra called again. Said Daddy recovered from the stroke, but has some paralysis on his left side. She wanted to know if I might visit for Christmas. I told her I'd think about it and then blocked her number. I don't need updates on his life. I don't need to know if he's happy or sad or sick or well. He stopped being my father the day he walked out on Mama. February 14th, 2021. Valentine's Day. Mabel sent me a card that said, "To the best sister ever." If she only knew. If she only knew that I've been lying to her for 16 years. That I've let her mourn a man who doesn't deserve her tears. But what good would the truth do now? It would only hurt her more. She'd want to see him, to confront him, to ask him why. And then she'd have to live with his answers, whatever they might be. No, it's better this way. My lie protects her, even if she can't see it. April 3rd, 2023. I'm 75 years old today. Mabel threw me a beautiful party. All our friends were there, our children and grandchildren. I blew out the candles and made a wish. I wished that I could take back that first lie. That I could go back to March 2005 and tell Mabel the truth. But wishes don't work that way, do they? You can't undo 20 years of lies with a wish. You can only live with the consequences. January 15th, 2025. 20 years. It's been 20 years since I told Mabel that Daddy died. 20 years of maintaining this fiction. I got another card from him yesterday. This time the handwriting was shaky, harder to read. I'm 85 now, it said. I don't know how much time I have left. I think about you girls every day. I'm sorry for everything. I hope you've had good lives. I didn't throw this one away. I don't know why. Maybe because I'm getting old too, and I'm tired of holding grudges. Or maybe because I finally understand that everyone makes choices they regret, and Daddy's just happened to be ones I couldn't forgive. The last entry was dated just 2 weeks ago, July 10th, 2025. Sandra called from a new number. Daddy's in hospice. Lung cancer. She says he has maybe a month or 2 left. She says he keeps asking about his daughters. She says he wants to say goodbye. I told her I'd think about it. But I won't go. I won't tell Mabel. What would be the point now? Let him die thinking we're dead too. Let him die alone, wondering if we ever forgave him. It's what he deserves. The lie has gone on too long to tell the truth now. Mabel will never have to know that I stole 20 years of potential reconciliation from her. She'll never have to know that our father is about to die for real, and she won't get a chance to say goodbye. Some secrets are kinder than the truth. I closed the diary and set it carefully on the trunk beside me. My whole body felt numb, like I'd been submerged in ice water. Daddy was alive. Right now, at this very moment, my father was lying in a hospice bed in Florida, dying of cancer, and I had no idea. But Lillian knew. She'd always known. And she'd decided completely on her own, that I didn't deserve the truth. That I didn't deserve the chance to make my own choices about whether to see him, speak to him, forgive him or not forgive him. She'd robbed me of 20 years. 20 years of knowing my father was alive. 20 years of the possibility of reconciliation, of understanding, of closure on my own terms. I heard her footsteps on the attic ladder. She was coming back. I stood up, slipping the diary into my purse, and turned to face the opening just as her head appeared. "Sorry that took so long," she said, slightly breathless from the climb. "My stomach's been acting up today. Did you find anything interesting in that box?" I looked at my sister, really looked at her kind face, her gentle smile, the same face I'd been looking at my entire life, the face I'd trusted without question, the face that had lied to me for 2 decades. "Yes," I said, my voice surprisingly steady. "I found something very interesting. In fact, Lily, I think we need to have a conversation. A long one." Her smile faltered. "About what?" I pulled the diary from my purse and held it up. "About Daddy. About the fact that he's been alive this whole time. About the fact that you've been lying to me for 20 years. The color drained from her face. For a moment, I thought she might faint. She grabbed onto the attic ladder to steady herself, her mouth opening and closing like a fish pulled from water. Mabel, don't. I held up my hand. Don't say anything right now. We're going downstairs. We're going to sit at the kitchen table, and you're going to tell me everything. And I mean everything, Lillian. Every single detail of every single lie. Do you understand me? She nodded, tears already spilling down her cheeks. I can explain. I said not yet. My voice was hard, harder than I'd ever used with her before. Downstairs. Now, the kitchen table had been in our family for 3 generations. Mama had served Sunday dinners on it. Daddy had helped us with homework. Lillian and I had shared countless cups of coffee at it over the years. Now we sat across from each other like adversaries. The diary between us like a smoking gun. Lillian was crying softly, her hands twisted together in her lap. I sat perfectly still, waiting. I'd cried enough in that attic. Now I needed answers. How did you find it? She finally asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Does it matter? No, I suppose not. She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. I don't even remember putting it up there. I used to hide it in my bedroom, but I must have moved it at some point and forgot. God, Mabel, I never wanted you to find out this way. I never wanted you to find out at all. That much is clear. I tapped the diary with one finger. 20 years, Lillian. You lied to me for 20 years. You let me grieve for him, cry for him, miss him. You watched me spread ashes under that oak tree. Ashes of what, by the way? What did I spread on Daddy's supposed grave? She flinched. Wood ash from the fireplace, mixed with some dirt from his old garden. I wanted you to have closure. I actually laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. Closure. Built on a lie. Built on the biggest betrayal I can imagine. Tell me everything, Lillian. Start from the beginning. And don't you dare leave anything out. She took a shaky breath and began. It was September of 2004, she said, her voice trembling. Mama had been dead for 6 years. You just moved to Arizona. Daddy had been acting strange for a few months, taking long drives, being secretive about his phone calls. I thought maybe he was planning a trip or had a new hobby he was embarrassed about. But then one evening, he sat me down right here at this table and told me he was leaving. Leaving for where? Florida. With a woman named Patricia Schoolbook. She was 56, 20 years younger than him. They'd met at some conference for retired engineers. He said he'd been lonely since Mama died. He said he deserved to be happy in his remaining years. He said he hoped I'd understand. The way she said those words, dripping with venom, made it clear she'd never understood, never forgiven. He was leaving us, she continued. After 50 years of marriage to Mama, after raising us, after being part of this community his entire life, he was just going to walk away for some woman he barely knew. And he expected me to support it. To be happy for him. What did you say? I told him he was a selfish bastard. I told him Mama must be rolling in her grave. I told him if he walked out that door, he was dead to me. She met my eyes. And I meant it, Mabel. I meant every word. He left anyway that very night. Packed 2 suitcases and drove away. Just like that, he was gone. And you decided to lie to me about it. Not right away. She shook her head. At first, I just didn't tell you. I thought maybe he'd come back and realize what a mistake he'd made. But weeks turned into months and he didn't come back. He sent me a letter in November with his new address and phone number. He said I could call anytime. He said he missed me. He said he hoped I'd tell you, but he'd understand if I didn't want to. That's when I started thinking about what the truth would do to you. That wasn't your decision to make. I know that now. She was crying harder. But at the time, Mabel, I was so angry. So furious at him for abandoning us, for betraying Mama's memory. And you'd always been Daddy's little girl. You adored him. You thought he hung the moon. I couldn't stand the thought of him breaking your heart the way he'd broken mine. So you broke it yourself instead, I said quietly. With a lie. I thought I was protecting you. By early 2005, you'd settled in Arizona. You sounded so happy when we talked on the phone. You and Howard were loving the warm weather, your grandkids were visiting, you had a whole new life. And I thought, why drag you back into this mess? Why make you choose between maintaining a relationship with Daddy and being loyal to Mama's memory? Oh, I made the choice for you. You told me he died. Yes. She buried her face in her hands. I told you he had a heart attack. I made up the whole story, the ambulance, the cremation, all of it. And you believed me. Of course you believed me. Why wouldn't you? I was your sister. We'd never lied to each other before. I let that sit between us for a moment. What about the memorial service? All those people who came. They knew, she admitted. Everyone in town knew Daddy had left. It was a small community, people talk. But when you flew in for the service, everyone played along. They felt sorry for you, I think. They thought I was protecting you from painful knowledge, and they respected that. Or maybe they just didn't want to be the ones to tell you the truth. My stomach turned. All those people, friends, neighbors, people I'd known my entire life, they'd all been in on the lie. They'd all stood there at that fake memorial service and offered me condolences for a man who was alive and well in Florida. The letters, I said suddenly, remembering. Every year on his birthday and the anniversary of his death, I'd write you letters sharing memories of Daddy. You'd write back, sharing your own memories. Were those real? Or were you lying in those too? She looked away, unable to meet my eyes. The memories were real. But yes, I was lying. Every time you cried about missing him, every time you said you wished you'd been here at the end, I was lying. And it got harder every year, Mabel. That's what the diary was for. A place to put the truth, because I couldn't carry it all in my head anymore. I had to write it down, confess it somewhere, even if only to myself. You said in one of the entries that he sent you cards every year. She nodded. On the anniversary of when he left. Always the same apologetic message. I threw most of them away. Most. I kept a few. I don't know why. Maybe as evidence, maybe as punishment for myself. They're in my desk drawer downstairs if you want to see them. I did want to see them. I wanted to see my father's handwriting, proof that he'd been alive all these years. In a minute. First, tell me about the stroke. The entry from 2019. Lillian's face crumpled. That was one of the hardest moments. This woman Sandra called. Apparently she's been with Daddy all these years, maybe even married him, I don't know. She said he'd had a stroke and was asking for his daughters. She wanted me to know, to give me the chance to visit. And I almost did, Mabel. I almost got in my car and drove down there. But then I thought about all the years that had passed, all the lies I'd told. How could I suddenly show up at his hospital bed? How could I explain to you where I'd been? So I told Sandra I'd think about it, and then I never called her back. He could have died then. I know. You would have let him die without giving me a chance to say goodbye. I know. She was sobbing now. I know, and I've hated myself for it every day since. But I'd gone too far, don't you see? The lie had become so big, so all-consuming, that I couldn't find a way out of it. Every year that passed made it worse. Every tear you cried made it worse. How do you tell someone you've lied to for 15, 16, 17 years? How do you explain that you've been maintaining this fiction throughout their entire relationship with you? You tell them the truth, I said, my voice breaking for the first time since we'd sat down. You tell them the truth and you let them make their own decisions. You don't get to play God with people's lives, Lillian. You don't get to decide what's best for them, what they can and can't handle. That's not love, that's control. I was trying to protect you. No. I slammed my hand on the table, making her jump. You were trying to protect yourself. You were angry at Daddy, and instead of dealing with your own feelings, you decided to punish him by cutting me out of his life too. You decided that your anger was more important than my right to make my own choices. And now you have the audacity to call it protection. She opened her mouth to respond, but I wasn't finished. Do you know what the worst part is? I asked, my voice dropping to barely above a whisper. It's not even a lie about his death. It's 20 years, Lillian. 20 years of conversations where you listened to me cry about missing him. 20 years of holidays where we toasted his memory. 20 years where I carried guilt about not being here at the end, about being in Arizona instead of by his bedside. And you let me carry that guilt. You watched me torture myself and you did nothing. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry. Sorry, don't give me back those 20 years. Sorry, don't give me back the chance to talk to him, to hear his side of the story, to decide for myself whether I wanted a relationship with him or not. There's something else, Lillian said, and something in her tone made my blood run cold. Something I haven't told you yet. The last entry you read, the one about Sandra calling. Daddy's in hospice. He has lung cancer. He's dying, Mabel. For real this time. The room spun. When? She called 2 weeks ago. She said he probably has a month or two left. And you weren't going to tell me. I didn't know how. I still don't know how. But now you know everything, and you can decide what to do. If you want to see him. If I want to see him? I stood up so fast my chair fell backward with a crash. Of course I want to see him. He's my father. He's been my father for 73 years, and just because you've been angry at him for 20 doesn't erase the 53 years before that when he was a good dad, when he loved us, when he was there for us. He walked out on us, Lillian said, a flash of her old anger showing through. He left us for another woman. He abandoned his family. He left after Mama died. After he'd been a faithful husband for 50 years. After he'd raised us and put us through college, and walked us both down the aisle at our weddings. Yes, he made a choice you didn't like, but he was also an adult human being who deserved to make his own decisions about his life. And maybe, if you'd told me the truth back in 2004, I could have talked to him. I could understand his reasons. I could have had a relationship with my father for the past 20 years instead of grieving a ghost. We stared at each other across the kitchen table. Years of unspoken resentment and hurt boiling to the surface. This was my sister, the person I'd trusted more than anyone, and at that moment, I wasn't sure I even knew her. Before we continue, I need to pause here and ask you something. If you're finding this story compelling, if you're as shocked and heartbroken as I was when I discovered the truth, please take a moment to subscribe to Family Tales and leave a comment. Tell me, what would you do in my situation? Would you forgive your sister? Would you go see your father? These are the questions I was grappling with, and I'd love to hear your thoughts. I need to know everything, I said, forcing myself to sit back down, to stay calm. I need contact information for Sandra. I need Daddy's address, his phone number if you have it. I need to know exactly where he is and what his condition is. Lillian got up slowly and went to the desk in the corner of the kitchen. She pulled out a folder and handed it to me. Inside were the cards Daddy had sent, maybe a dozen of them, spanning 20 years. His handwriting was right there, just as I remembered it. Shaky in the recent ones, strong and confident in the earlier ones. Each one said variations of the same thing. I'm sorry. I hope you understand. I think about you girls every day. I love you, Dad. There was also a piece of paper with an address in Sarasota, Florida, and 2 phone numbers, one labeled home and one labeled Sandra. That's everything I have, Lillian said quietly. The hospice is called Peaceful Horizons. Sandra's number is the best one to call. She's been taking care of him. I stared at the information in my hands. My father was dying, really dying this time, and he was over 1,000 miles away. After 20 years of thinking he was gone, I suddenly had the chance to see him again, but that chance might only last a few weeks. I'm going to Florida, I said. Tomorrow if I can get a flight. I'm going to see him. Do you want me to come with you? Lillian asked hesitantly. I looked up at her, at this woman who'd been my closest companion my entire life, and felt nothing but a vast emptiness where our sisterly bond used to be. No, I said simply. I don't. In fact, Lillian, I need you to understand something. You've damaged our relationship in ways I'm not sure can ever be repaired. You didn't just lie about one thing. You built an entire false reality and maintained it for 2 decades. Every conversation we've had for 20 years has been tainted by your deception. Every memory we've made has been built on a foundation of lies. Mabel, please. I need time. I need space. I need to process this, and I need to see Daddy before he dies. But I want you to know that I can't look at you the same way right now. I don't know if I'll ever be able to trust you again. She was crying openly now, tears streaming down her face. I understand. I do. I just hope that someday you can forgive me. I never meant to hurt you. But you did hurt me, I said, standing and gathering my purse and the folder. You hurt me in the deepest way possible. You stole 20 years from me, Lillian. 20 years I can never get back. And you did it while making me think you were the person I could trust most in the world. I walked toward the door, then paused and turned back. You know what the saddest part is? All these years, you've been punishing Daddy for making a choice without considering your feelings. But that's exactly what you did to me. You made a choice, a huge life-altering choice, without considering my feelings at all. So maybe you and Daddy are more alike than you'd like to admit. I left her sitting at that kitchen table, crying into her hands, and walked out of the house I'd grown up in. The house that had always represented safety and family and love. Now it just felt like a monument to lies. Howard was shocked when I got home and told him everything. He held me while I cried. Really cried this time, not the numb shock of the attic but deep, wrenching sobs for all the lost years, all the missed conversations, all the what-ifs that would haunt me forever. We'll go to Florida tomorrow, he said firmly. I'll book the flights right now. Whatever you need, Mabel. I'm with you. That night, I called the number Lillian had given me for Sandra. My hands were shaking as I dialed. A woman answered on the third ring, her voice tired but kind. Hello. Is this Sandra? Yes, it is. Who's calling? My name is Mabel Richardson. I'm Ernest's daughter. There was a sharp intake of breath on the other end. Mabel? Oh my goodness. Lillian told you. Not exactly. I found out on my own. Sandra, I need to know, is it true? Is my father really dying? Yes, honey, I'm afraid so. Her voice was gentle, sympathetic. The doctors say he has maybe 3 to 4 weeks left. The cancer spread to his liver and his bones. He's comfortable, not in much pain thanks to the medications, but he's very weak. Can I see him? Would he want to see me? Sandra actually laughed, a sound mixed with tears. Would he want to see you? Mabel, he talks about you almost every day. About you and Lillian both. He's carried so much regret for so many years. I've been trying to convince him to reach out to you girls directly, but he was always too afraid. He thought you hated him, thought you'd hang up if he called. I didn't even know he was alive until today, I said, my voice breaking. Lillian told me he died 20 years ago. I've been grieving for him since 2005. The silence on the other end was deafening. When Sandra spoke again, her voice was shocked. She told you he was dead? But I called her in 2019, when Ernest had his stroke. She said she'd think about visiting. I assumed she'd told you. She didn't. She never told me anything. I thought my father died of a heart attack in March 2005. Oh, Mabel. I'm so sorry. I don't even have words for that. Sandra sighed heavily. Ernest is going to be devastated when he hears this. He thought Lillian had told you the truth years ago. He thought you knew where he was and just chose not to contact him. That's been breaking his heart. Can I come see him? Tomorrow? I can fly down tonight if I need to. Of course you can come. Mabel, he would be so happy. So incredibly happy. Let me give you the address of the hospice center. Come whenever you can. I'll make sure he's ready for visitors. She gave me the information. We talked for a few more minutes about his condition and what to expect, and then we said goodbye. I sat holding the phone for a long time after we hung up, trying to process everything. My father thought I'd chosen not to see him. He'd been living with that pain for 20 years, thinking his daughter had turned her back on him, when all along I'd thought he was dead. What Lillian had done wasn't just a lie. It was a theft of epic proportions. She'd stolen 2 decades of relationship from both of us. She'd stolen Daddy's peace of mind and my right to make my own choices. And she'd done it all while pretending to be the loving, supportive sister she'd always been. Howard and I flew to Florida the next morning. The flight felt endless, every minute an agony of anticipation and dread. What would I say to him? What would he say to me? How do you compress 20 years of missed conversations into what might be our last few weeks together? Peaceful Horizons Hospice was a beautiful facility, with gardens and comfortable sitting areas, designed to make the end of life as peaceful as possible. Sandra met us in the lobby, a small, kind-looking woman with gray hair and warm brown eyes. She hugged me like we were old friends. "He's sleeping right now," she said. "But he knows you're coming." I told him this morning, and Mabel, I've never seen a man cry harder. Happy tears, though. The happiest tears. She led us down a quiet hallway to a room at the end. Room 117. My father's room. "Take all the time you need," Sandra said, squeezing my hand. "I'll be in the family lounge if you need anything." Howard kissed my cheek. "Do you want me to come in with you?" "Not yet," I said. "I need to do this part alone." I stood outside that door for what felt like an eternity, my hand on the handle, gathering my courage. Then I took a deep breath and pushed it open. The room was softly lit, with afternoon sunlight filtering through sheer curtains. There was a hospital bed, some medical equipment, a comfortable chair, and in the bed, a man who was both familiar and foreign to me. He'd aged. Of course he had. It had been 21 years since I'd last seen him, back in 2003 when Howard and I left for Arizona. His hair was completely white now, not the salt and pepper I remembered. He was thin, so thin, his cheekbones sharp under papery skin. But his face, that was still Daddy's face. The same nose, the same jawline, the same gentle expression even in sleep. I moved closer, my shoes silent on the tile floor. Up close, I could see the shallow rise and fall of his chest, and could hear the soft beep of the monitors tracking his heartbeat. "Daddy," I whispered. His eyes opened slowly, unfocused at first, then sharpened as they found my face. For a moment he just stared at me, as if he couldn't believe what he was seeing. "Mabel." His voice was hoarse, barely audible. "Is that really you?" "It's really me, Daddy." The tears I'd been holding back broke free. "I'm here. I'm really here." He tried to sit up, struggled with it, and I rushed forward to help him, adjusting his pillows, supporting his frail body. When he was settled, he reached for my hand with both of his, gripping it with what little strength he had left. "I thought I'd never see you again," he said, tears spilling down his weathered cheeks. "I thought you hated me. I thought you turned your back on me, and I didn't blame you. Not for a second. What I did was unforgivable. Daddy, I need you to listen to me." I pulled the chair close to his bed and sat down, never letting go of his hand. "I didn't know. I didn't know you were alive. Lillian told me you died in March 2005. She told me you had a heart attack. I've been grieving you for 20 years. The color drained from his face. "What? No. No, that can't be right." She knew where I was. I sent her my address, my phone number. I send cards every year. She knew. She knew, but she never told me. She decided I was better off thinking you were dead than knowing you'd left. She made that choice for me, and she maintained it for 2 decades. He closed his eyes, fresh tears seeping from beneath his lids. "Oh, Mabel. Oh, sweetheart. I'm so sorry. I never wanted. I thought you knew. I thought you just didn't want to see me, and I understood. I made a choice that hurt you girls, and I've lived with that guilt every single day." "Tell me what happened," I said. "Tell me your side of the story. I need to understand, Daddy. I need to know why you left." He took a shaky breath and began to speak. Over the next hour, my father told me everything. He told me about the loneliness after Mama died, how the house had felt like a tomb without her, how everywhere he looked reminded him of what he'd lost. He told me about meeting Patricia at a conference, how they'd started as friends, how she'd made him laugh for the first time in years. "I know how it looks," he said. "An old man leaves his family for a younger woman. Classic midlife crisis. Except I was in my late 70s. But Mabel, it wasn't like that. Patricia had lost her husband to cancer too. We understood each other's grief. And when she invited me to visit her in Florida, I thought, why not? What did I have left here? You and Lillian were grown, with your own families. Your mother was gone. I was just rattling around in this big empty house, waiting to die. Did you love her, Patricia? He nodded. Yes. Not the same way I loved your mother. That was 50 years of shared history, of raising children together, of building a life. But I loved Patricia in a different way. She gave me a reason to wake up in the morning. She made me feel like I still had something to offer the world. What happened to her? She died 3 years ago. Heart attack in her sleep. Sandra is her daughter. She'd been taking care of both of us, and when Patricia passed, she insisted on continuing to care for me. She's been like a daughter to me, Mabel. I don't know what I would have done without her. So you've been alone again. For 3 years. Yes. Well, alone except for Sandra. She's been wonderful. But I've missed you and Lillian every single day. I've thought about you, wondered about your lives, looked at old photos until I wore them out. I wrote you letters I never sent. I picked up the phone 1,000 times, but couldn't make myself dial. I was a coward, Mabel. A coward who made a selfish choice and then didn't have the courage to face the consequences. I squeezed his hand. You weren't a coward, Daddy. You were lonely and you made a choice to find happiness again. Was it the best choice? Maybe not. But it was yours to make. And Lillian had no right to keep us apart because she disapproved. Don't be too hard on your sister, he said weakly. She was protecting you in the only way she knew how. She was angry at me, and she had every right to be. I left without really explaining myself. I just ran away to Florida like I was escaping something instead of running towards something. I hurt her badly. That doesn't excuse what she did. No, it doesn't. But understanding why someone does something doesn't require excusing it. Your sister loves you, Mabel. She always has. She just loved you in the wrong way this time. We talked for hours that day, about everything and nothing. He told me about his life in Florida. The small apartment he and Patricia had shared, the beach where he walked every morning, the book club he'd joined, the friends he'd made. I told him about my life in Arizona, about my grandchildren and great-grandchildren, about the quilting group I'd joined, about Howard's retirement. It was like no time had passed at all. And yet we were both acutely aware of how much time we'd lost. I spent the next 3 weeks in Florida, visiting Daddy every single day. Howard stayed with me, supporting me through every tearful conversation, every difficult moment. Sandra became a friend, sharing stories about Daddy's life that I'd missed, showing me photos of him and Patricia, of beach trips and birthday celebrations and ordinary days that I should have been part of. Daddy's condition deteriorated quickly. The doctors said that sometimes happens when people get what they've been waiting for. He'd held on long enough to see me, and now his body was giving him permission to let go. On my 4th day there, I called Lillian. How is he? She asked immediately, her voice raw. He's dying. He has maybe a week left, maybe less. Silence. Then, does he hate me? No. He doesn't hate you, Lily. He's hurt by what you did, but he doesn't hate you. He asked me to tell you that he loves you, that he forgives you, and that he hopes you can forgive him. She broke down crying. I can't go there. I can't face him, Mabel. I've hated him for so long, and now I don't even know if it was justified. Maybe I was just angry because he chose happiness over my approval. Maybe I'm the selfish one. Maybe you're both flawed human beings who made mistakes, I said. Just like the rest of us. Lily, I'm not going to tell you what to do. If you want to come see him before he dies, you're welcome. If you can't bring yourself to do it, I'll understand. But I want you to think about something. You've already spent 20 years carrying anger and resentment. Do you really want to spend the rest of your life carrying regret too? She didn't come that day, or the next. But on the 7th day of my visit, I arrived at the hospice to find her sitting in the family lounge, looking small and frightened. I couldn't stay away, she said simply. He's my father too. No matter what he did, no matter what I did, he's still my father. I took her hand, the first physical contact we'd had since I'd walked out of her kitchen that day, and led her to Daddy's room. He was awake, barely, his breathing labored, his eyes cloudy with pain medication. "Daddy," I said gently, "Lillian's here." His eyes focused on her, and for a moment, I thought he might cry. But he was too weak for tears now. He just lifted one shaking hand toward her. Lillian crossed the room and took his hand, and 20 years of anger and hurt and distance crumbled in an instant. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I'm so sorry, Daddy. For everything. For hating you, for keeping Mabel away, for all of it." "My girl," he managed to say. "My beautiful girl. Love you both so much." "We love you too, Daddy," I said, taking his other hand. And there we sat, both of his daughters on either side of his bed, holding his hands as his breathing grew shallower and slower. He died that evening with both of us there, peacefully, quietly, slipping away like someone falling asleep. And this time, I got to say goodbye. The grief was different this time around. It was real, and deep, and painful, but it wasn't tainted with guilt or distance or unresolved questions. I'd gotten my 3 weeks with him. I'd gotten my answers. I'd gotten closure. But I'd also lost 20 years that I could never get back. Lillian and I planned his funeral together. A real funeral this time, with his actual body, in Sarasota near the beach he'd loved. We invited his Florida friends, the people who'd known him in these last years. Sandra came, and so did Patricia's other children, who'd thought of Daddy as a stepfather. At the funeral, I stood up and spoke about him. About the father he'd been when I was young. About the man he'd been in his final weeks. And about the 20 years in between that had been stolen from us. "My sister made a choice 20 years ago," I said, looking directly at Lillian in the front row. "A choice that came from hurt and anger, and a misguided desire to protect me. And that choice cost me dearly. It cost my father dearly. But I want everyone here to understand something. We're all capable of making terrible choices in the name of love. We're all capable of hurting the people we care about while believing we're doing the right thing." After the funeral, Lillian and I walked on the beach together, our shoes in our hands, waves lapping at our feet. "I don't know how to make this right," she said. "I don't know if I can." "You can't," I said honestly. "You can't give me back those 20 years. You can't undo the lie. But Lily, we're both in our 70s. We don't have time for grudges anymore. We don't have time for anything except truth and forgiveness, and making the most of whatever time we have left. Can you forgive me?" I thought about it for a long moment, watching the sun sink toward the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. "I can forgive you," I said finally. "But it's going to take time before I can trust you again. You hurt me, Lillian. You hurt me worse than anyone else ever has. And that doesn't just disappear because I've decided to forgive you. I understand. I'll spend the rest of my life making it up to you if I have to. Don't spend your life making it up to me. Spend your life being honest. With me, with yourself, with everyone. That's all I ask." We stood there together as the sun set over the Gulf of Mexico. Two sisters who'd been through hell and come out the other side. Battered but still standing. The weeks following Daddy's funeral were strange and disorienting. I returned to Arizona with Howard, but something fundamental had shifted inside me. I found myself unable to sleep through the night, waking at 3 in the morning with my mind spinning through all the conversations Daddy and I could have had, all the visits we could have made, all the phone calls that never happened. I started seeing a grief counselor, Dr. Patricia Chan, a kind woman in her 50s who specialized in complicated family dynamics. In our first session, I told her the whole story, the diary, the lies, the 3 weeks with my father, everything. "You're grieving multiple losses," she explained. "You're grieving your father's death, yes. But you're also grieving the 20 years you lost with him. You're grieving the sister you thought you had. You're grieving your own innocence, your ability to trust without question. That's a lot of grief to carry all at once." She was right. Some days the weight of it all felt crushing. But she taught me techniques for managing the pain, for processing the complicated emotions without being overwhelmed by them. Slowly, week by week, I started to feel like I could breathe again. Howard was my rock through all of it. He never once said, "I told you so," even though he'd always had reservations about how close I was with Lillian. He just held me when I needed to cry, listened when I needed to talk, and gave me space when I needed to be alone with my thoughts. My children, Catherine and Thomas, were shocked when I told them what had happened. Catherine, my eldest, was furious with Lillian. She wanted to cut her aunt out of her life completely, to never speak to her again. "Mom, what she did is unforgivable," Catherine said during one of our long phone conversations. "She stole 20 years from you. From Grandpa. How can you even consider having a relationship with her after that?" "Because she's my sister," I said simply. "And because I'm 73 years old, Catherine. I don't have the luxury of decades to hold grudges. If I cut Lillian out of my life, I lose the only sibling I have. I lose 53 years of shared history, of memories, of love that existed before all of this happened. And Daddy wouldn't have wanted that. In his final days, all he wanted was for us to reconcile." Thomas, my younger child, took a more measured approach. "I understand why you want to maintain a relationship with Aunt Lillian," he said. "But Mom, you need to protect yourself too. She broke your trust in the worst possible way. If you're going to have her in your life, you need to set boundaries. Clear ones." He was right, of course. And that's exactly what I did. 2 months after Daddy's death, I invited Lillian to visit me in Arizona. It was the first time we'd been together since the beach walk in Florida, and the awkwardness between us was palpable. We sat in my living room, tea cooling in our cups, searching for words. "I've been in therapy," I told her, "working through everything that happened. And my therapist suggested that if we're going to rebuild our relationship, we need to establish some ground rules." Lillian nodded, her face pale. "Whatever you need, Mabel. I'll do whatever it takes." "First," I said, "complete honesty. From now on, no matter how difficult the truth might be, you tell me. No more lies, no more omissions, no more deciding what I can and can't handle. If something important is happening, I have the right to know." "I promise," she said. "I swear to you, Mabel, I will never lie to you again. Second, we need to talk about what happened. Really talk about it. Not just once, but as many times as I need to. There are going to be days when I'm angry all over again, when the hurt feels fresh. And on those days, you need to be willing to listen, to acknowledge what you did without getting defensive." "I can do that," she said, tears welling in her eyes. "I know I hurt you. I know what I did was wrong. I'm prepared to hear that as many times as you need to say it. And third," I continued, "you need to understand that our relationship will never be exactly what it was before. That version of us where I trusted you completely without question, that's gone. We're rebuilding something new, and it's going to take time. Years probably. Maybe the rest of our lives." Lillian wiped her eyes. "I understand. And Mabel, I want you to know, I don't expect you to just get over this. I don't expect forgiveness to mean forgetting. I just want the chance to prove that I can be the sister you deserve. The honest one. The trustworthy one. Even if it takes the rest of my life." We talked for hours that day, really talked. She told me about the guilt she'd been carrying, how it had eaten away at her year after year, how writing in the diary had been the only way she could cope with the weight of her deception. She told me about the nightmares she'd had, dreams where I found out the truth in even more devastating ways. "Sometimes I dreamed that Daddy showed up at your door," she said. "Just appeared after all those years, and you realized I'd been lying. The look on your face in those dreams, the betrayal, the hurt, it haunted me. But I was too much of a coward to tell you the truth when I was awake." I told her about my own experiences, about the grief I'd carried for 20 years, about the guilt over not being there when I thought Daddy died, about the joy and pain of those 3 weeks in the hospice. I told her about the anger I still felt, anger that would flare up at unexpected moments. "I'll be doing something completely ordinary," I explained, "like grocery shopping or folding laundry, and suddenly I'll remember something. A conversation we had about Daddy, a holiday where we toasted his memory, and I'll realize it was all based on a lie. and the anger hits me like a wave. "I'm so sorry," she kept saying. "I'm so sorry." And I believed her. That was perhaps the most complicated part of all this. I believed that she was genuinely remorseful, that she understood the magnitude of what she'd done. But remorse doesn't undo the past. It doesn't give back what was taken. Lillian stayed with me for a week, and by the end of it, something had shifted between us. It wasn't the easy, comfortable sisterhood we'd once shared. It was something more fragile, more careful, built on a foundation that we both knew had once crumbled. But it was something. That was 3 months ago. Today, I sit in my living room in Arizona, writing this all down, trying to make sense of everything that happened. Lillian and I talk on the phone twice a week now, careful conversations where we're both trying to rebuild something that was shattered. It's not the same as it was before, it never will be, but it's something. I've been in therapy processing the grief and the betrayal and the complicated mess of emotions that comes from losing your father twice, and discovering your sister isn't who you thought she was. My therapist says I'm doing well, all things considered. Some days I believe her. I think about Daddy every day. I look at the photos Sandra sent me. Pictures of him from his Florida years, smiling on the beach, laughing with friends, living a life I knew nothing about. I'm grateful for the 3 weeks I had with him at the end. I'm grateful that I got to say goodbye, got to tell him I loved him, got to understand his choices even if I didn't fully agree with them. But I'm also angry. So incredibly angry at all the lost time, at all the conversations we never had, at all the birthdays and Christmases and ordinary Tuesdays that we could have shared if only Lillian had told me the truth. Sandra and I have stayed in touch. She sends me emails with stories about Daddy, little memories that help fill in the 20-year gap in my knowledge of his life. Last week, she sent me a box of his belongings, his favorite cardigan, the reading glasses he wore, a journal he'd kept sporadically over the years. Reading his journal entries has been both healing and heartbreaking. In one entry from 2010 he wrote, "5 years since I've seen my girls. I wonder if they think about me. I wonder if Lillian ever told Mabel the truth. I hope they're happy. I hope they've built good lives. I made my choice, and I have to live with the consequences, but God, I miss them." He thought about us. All those years, he was thinking about us, just as I was thinking about him. Though I thought I was remembering a ghost. I've learned something important through all of this, though. I've learned that families are complicated, messy, imperfect things. We hurt each other, sometimes on purpose and sometimes by accident. We make choices that seem right in the moment, but turn out to be catastrophically wrong. We lie to protect each other, and end up causing more pain than the truth ever would have. But we're also resilient. We can survive betrayal and loss and grief that seems insurmountable. We can choose forgiveness, even when we don't feel forgiving. We can rebuild trust, even when it seems impossible. My sister took 20 years from me. That's a fact I can't change. But I refuse to let her take any more. I refuse to spend the rest of my life consumed by anger and resentment. Life is too short, too precious, too fleeting to waste on grudges. Last month, on what would have been Daddy's 86th birthday, Lillian and I did something together. We planted a tree in my backyard, a live oak, the same kind that stood in our childhood garden. We planted it in his memory, both of us crying as we patted the soil around its roots. To Daddy, Lillian said, who made mistakes but loved us anyway. And to us, I added, who are learning to love each other through our mistakes. It's not perfect. Our relationship may never be perfect again. But it's honest now, and that counts for something. If you're watching this and you have a family secret, something you're hiding because you think it's for the best, because you think you're protecting someone, please reconsider. Please think about what you're taking from them by keeping that secret. Truth is almost always better than lies, even when the truth is painful, because at least with truth, people can make their own choices. They can decide for themselves how to feel, what to do, how to move forward. Don't rob someone of 20 years the way my sister robbed me. Don't take away someone's right to say goodbye to a person they love. Don't play God with other people's relationships. And if you're someone who's just discovered that you've been lied to, Whether it's about a death or a divorce or a family secret or anything else, know that you're not alone. Know that the pain you're feeling is valid. Know that it's okay to be angry and hurt and confused all at the same time. Know that forgiveness is possible, but it doesn't have to happen on anyone else's timeline but yours. I miss my father. I miss the sister I thought I had. But I'm learning to build a new relationship with the sister I actually have, flawed and human and capable of terrible mistakes, just like the rest of us. To everyone watching Family Tales, thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for bearing witness to my pain and my journey toward healing. If this story resonated with you, if it made you think about your own family relationships, please leave a comment below. Share your own experiences with family secrets, with betrayal, with forgiveness. We heal better when we heal together. And please subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. Stories like mine need to be told. They need to be heard. Because somewhere out there, someone else is living with a lie, and maybe, just maybe, hearing my story will give them the courage to seek the truth. My name is Mabel Richardson. I'm 73 years old. I lost my father twice, once to a lie and once for real. But in losing him, I also found him again, even if only for 3 precious weeks. And I learned that truth, no matter how painful, is always worth pursuing. Thank you for listening to my story. Take care of each other. Be honest with each other. And never ever take time with the people you love for granted, because you never know when that time might run out. Before I go, I want to leave you with something my father said to me in one of our last conversations. His voice was weak, his words came slowly, but his message was clear. Mabel, he said, life is too short to live someone else's version of your truth. Make your own choices. Live with your own consequences. And never let anyone, no matter how much they love you, tell you how your story should go. I'm finally living by those words. I hope you will too. Until next time, this is Mabel Richardson, reminding you that family is complicated. Forgiveness is a journey, and the truth, no matter how painful, will always set you free in ways that lies never can. Take care, and remember to subscribe to Family Tales for more real stories from real people navigating the beautiful, messy complexity of family life.